40 years ago, the Triumph Owners Tape Recording Subcommittee, its signature tune was Highway Patrol, had been well established. So it came to pass in 1964, Jack Mercer sent from America to John Nelson 72 slides with the appropriate commentary that he had recorded on tape. In due course, John passed them on as requested to the late Harold Booty. He was a most excellent club publicity officer. Jack Mercer had requested this as he knew of the activities of the Triumph Owners Tape Recording Subcommittee. These slides then got shown to several branches and since then have been carefully stored away. Until recently, when I had them out and found them still most interesting. I wondered if others would share my view. Well, there is only one way to find out. I knew John had been friends with Jack Mercer. Well, who better than John to make the introduction? So I made arrangements to meet the club's patron at a suitable location and asked him to introduce Jack Mercer. For those who do not know John, our patron, I did ask him to tell us what had been his role with Triumph in 1964. I do know he was always most helpful to everyone and a good supporter of TOMCC, and he still is. So this is Mike Avell, late of the Triumph Owners Tape Recording Subcommittee, signing off. And it's over to you, John.
Hello, I'm John Nelson, and I'm now standing in a position which was once the entrance to the Triumph factory at Meriden. In fact, the name of this particular road is Bonneville Close, named after one of the machines which we used to manufacture and service throughout the world. Visiting overseas on behalf of the company, because each individual importer had their own service arrangements and service manager, I gradually became known as World Service Manager, so as not to be confused, a title which I thoroughly enjoyed actually. We're about to see a slideshow which was compiled by an old friend of mine and one of the representatives, the sales representatives, Jack Mercer, Eastern sales representatives who went round between the Triumph Corporation, the wholly subsidiary of Triumph in America, and the dealers, and he was always known as a humorist and a man who enjoyed getting up and talking to people, but this time he decided he'd make a slideshow of the bikes that he loved most and the customized versions of them. And I think Jack can explain these things for himself, which you'll hear as the show proceeds.
Well, here we go. On the first slide, we introduce the photographer as the happy gentleman in the Stibe sidecar, taking a ride with a dealer in Louisville, Kentucky. I thought you club members would enjoy looking at a rather fine motorcycle shop by American standards, at least the East Coast, the 31 eastern states that the Triumph Corporation sells to. The machine is my own, a stock Thunderbird, and I am probably the last of the sidecar enthusiasts in the United States. Sidecarring over here is practically a lost art, and worse still, a lost business. That's slide number 1, and here we go to slide number 2. This is a close-up of a racing 250cc Tiger Cub. This particular job was used by Eddie Clifford, a BSA Gold Star flat track champ, a rather good rider. And young Eddie rode this particular machine at the short track races in Santa Fe Park, a small amusement park outside the city of Chicago. And Eddie took about 9 out of 10 events entered. This particular machine is posed at our headquarters, our modern headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland. What has been done to this bike? Well, an aluminum Texas jug. Anything big in this country is given the automatic synonym of Texan. But it's an aluminum jug with a oversized bore, and the piston is probably one from a 40-inch Triumph. And I can't tell you the rest of the secrets, but these little jobs go very, very well. And this particular one is used on short track. Slide number 3, a drag job. A little cub scales in somewhere around 120 pounds, and the rider on it, a boy from Akron, Ohio, weighs even less, perhaps 95, 98 pounds. This particular machine has been top eliminator. That is, it has achieved the fastest elapsed time many occasions. Many times it's run out at the various drag strips in the Midwest. The young boy on it will often get the fastest time in a quarter-mile drag strip over even huge cars, huge Chryslers and Pontiacs, things of that sort, because he has the ability of getting off the line much faster than the heavier automobile. And even though they might go through the traps at 150 miles an hour, the elapsed time, the ET, will be faster, or shorter rather, for this particular cub. And the fastest recorded speed for it in a quarter mile is somewhere in the neighborhood of 95 miles per hour. Not much else to add to this bike, except it's cobbled up from old Terrier parts. The motor has been worked on, of course, and lightened as much as possible. And it's done a good job. It's run several years, several seasons, amazingly enough, on the same crank pin. Here we go now to slide number 4. This is Gus Herding, one of our dealers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the home of Harley Davidson. Gus is an excellent mechanic. He put in many years at the old Indian factory and several seasons with Harley Davidson before going off on his own to become a Triumph dealer in Milwaukee. This is his little racing machine. This too was ridden by Eddie Clifford as an ice racer on the frozen lakes in the vicinity of Milwaukee. Each of the spikes were turned individually on a lathe, and at one time even the famous Harley Davidson factory rider and racer Carol Reese-Weber has ridden this machine, and of course he was invincible. Both tanks, gas tank and aluminum, are made of aluminum. The gas tank and oil tank rather are made of aluminum, and you'll notice the rear frame section has been fabricated out of solid tubing. And Gus sells these rear frame sections for $35, or should I say 10 pounds, let's say 6 ounces, 10 pounds, 6 shillings, threepence halfpenny. Here's a close-up of Herding's little cub on slide number 5, giving you a better view of the spiked arrangement. Of course, you fellows in England know more about ice racing, true ice racing, as it's done in Sweden and Soviet Union and other cold countries. Hard to believe there are any countries cold in our own or England, but they claim there are. There we are, and we'll go to slide number 6. Here we are looking at a flat tracker, or dirt track cub, and I took this photograph mainly because of the neatness of the paint job and the general smart appearance of this little machine, which I found at a shop in Ohio. You'll notice the upright magneto, made in California, so-called Bates magneto, which some of the riders prefer, probably because it's different. Actually, we didn't like it because it creates excessive wear on the pinion gears. God knows they wear out fast enough. The rigid frame is a fabrication by the dealer, but the paint job, it's wonderful, isn't it? Really sharp job, and you'll see the little oil filter beneath the saddle. That's something borrowed from an industrial motor of some sort and sold by the Triumph Corporation to its dealers. The sharper members will note the complete absence of brake linings, because in our flat track or short track competition, no brakes are used. Something like the short tracks of England, compression and God stop you when trouble's up ahead. Here we go now to slide number 7. This is the famous Parasite, one of the better-known drag jobs along the East Coast. The muscular gentleman holding it so easily is Tommy Gracius, a Greek or an Italian boy from the seacoast of New Jersey, who did a marvelous job with this Triumph. It's a 40-inch machine, and as a 40-incher, it was hard to beat. Held many records, had a good reputation. Built by our dealer in Salem, New Jersey, a man named Melnichuk, a funny name and a wonderful dealer. Later on, they took this machine, as you'll see in the next slide, number 8, and converted it to the 2-burner Parasite. Should say the Parasite Mark II, I suppose. And here's Tommy dropped down on the machine in his racing pose. The front fork is pre-war Ariel or Triumph. The rear rim tire, the rim anyway, is from an old Indian. Cheesecaked, of course, for lightness and better adhesion to the special slick rubber shoe fitted. And in this position, Tommy had no saddle. He merely lay on a cross beam. And quite a man, they claim. And he shifts with his, just below his right toe, the shift lever can be seen. And in quarter-mile drag racing, the bikes are started in first and shifted once to second. And that's all the time permitted. This bike has achieved the amazing speed through the traps of 132 miles an hour and has gone through the quarter mile. I think its best time was in the low 10s. That would be 10 point something or other seconds. 2 standard 40-inch Triumphs worked over to the Bonneville specifications with the usual secrets that all these super tuners have. The barrels, the fins on the cylinders, have been turned down a bit on a lathe for added cooling. Machine runs on either gas or the exotic fuels that the drag guys go for, depending on what class he might be running in that particular day. Front rim, I think, is from a Stibe sidecar, at least the hub is from aluminum Stibe. And this bike is no longer owned by the dealer, but after 3 very successful years, he was able to sell it for perhaps a fraction of what he had in it, $1,500. Here we go to slide number 9. Oh, this is, better stop a moment while you boys laugh. This is our official frame tester. This picture of my stock Cub was taken outside a shop at Lansing, Michigan, and the huge boy on it rides a Harley Davidson. Need I say more? We pose him just for the fun of it. He's a lot of fun, this boy. He polishes car bodies for a living at the Oldsmobile plant in Lansing. He said, if you guys would only build a bigger bike, I'd ride it. Well, we guys will never do it. Stay on your Harley, son. Here we go to slide number 10. This is just a sharp shot of a standard Triumph 21, less the tail feathers. The enclosures did not meet with success in the U.S. And secretly, I don't think they met with success in England either, but we took what we could get, and we took them off later, made them into little bikes of this sort. This shot was taken in Detroit, Michigan. Slide number 11. This is not a particularly interesting Triumph outside of the weird paint job, and this is a show bike, not really meant to run on the streets, just an old Triumph, cobbled up, cleaned up, polished and painted, and used for exhibit purposes mainly. The man claimed it would run, but I never heard it. You notice the silly padding to the rear license holder, things of that sort. But they attract a lot of attention. I'm not entirely opposed to show bikes. As long as it brings the public around, creates a crowd, I'm all for it. Here we go to slide number 11. This is a chop job by one of our Pennsylvania dealers, a big boy called Bill Charlie. And this is a very successful young dealer outside of Harrisburg. And Bill's customers like his work. This is an old Triumph. Bill picked up rather cheaply and redid it, painted her up, and was able to double his money very quickly. Here's a close-up of some of Bill's excellent work. You might be interested in the unusual tack drive taken off the old Lucas Mag. This is before the factory made this type drive official and ran it off the front cam. The paint is a bit unusual. It's done by burnishing the tank down to the bare metal, and then the tank is given a light coat of Prussian blue or machinist blue, and then perhaps a dozen coats of clear lacquer. And Bill tosses in the emblem. Some sign painter does them, and gets a very good price for this hot motorcycle. A good fast job, probably running on us 110, 115 miles an hour. The tanks are brought in, I don't know where, probably from England by Hamp Jones of San Francisco, and the boys use them for this type of customizing. We go to slide 13. This is a typical post-war California chop job, so-called. You'll notice it has California plates and rather an old license plate number or a year, I think about 1959. So it indicates I took this photograph about 4 years ago, somewhere in Indiana. Bike belonged to a GI headed back to his base in Norfolk, Virginia. The paint job is typical of California. Very clever striping and a nice finish. And the small trophy-type tank is preferred out in California, and the upswept pipes. Of course, the little aluminum tail lamp and modified risers or high bars. This was an early job before tachometers became popular. Here we go to slide 14. The same machine in a side view. And this machine was prepared and sold in Oakland, California by Vern Gardner. That's his decal on the oil tank. The solo seat, ugly as it might seem, is very much sought after in the United States, and at least one supplier, Bates Manufacturing Company, has made a good living fabricating these smaller seats or special narrow double seats. The stock factory ironing board is not exactly what the customizer wants. Here we go now to slide 15. Another old photograph taken at a big race meet in Springfield, Illinois, showing two lovely ladies seated on an old 1951 trophy model, fitted with California-made shock absorbers, made up by a fellow whose name escapes me at the moment, but he's no longer in the shock absorber business. And believe it or not, the front forks actually stayed together, even in the rough stuff. The bright finish to the timing cover is, and the brake plate is chrome plating on aluminum. It's kind of a new process over here. I don't know whether you boys are familiar with it or not, but it really gives a high gloss to that part of the motor. Slide 17. A close-up of a customized saddle in Dayton, Ohio. The boys go for this. It costs them an extra $15 or $20. There we go. Here's the first non-Triumph shot. Slide 18. This is the famous Black Lightning, built by a group of New Zealand enthusiasts. You probably can make out the emblem of New Zealand, the eucalyptus branch underneath the lightning motif. These fellows came a long way to test this bike and go for the world's fastest speed record at dry lakes, and unfortunately they made their run just before Johnny Allen went through the traps with his 40-inch Triumph, and the best time the Vincent could achieve, although it was very good, was 198 miles an hour for the sidecar championship. Of course, the side wheel was just merely an extra wheel out there, no sidecar frame, just a frame rather. no body. Of course, Johnny Allen went through with the marvelous speed then of 214 plus miles an hour. That speed in turn has been raised up to 230. Anyway, the interesting part of this story is the fact that the New Zealanders were so heartbroken at the failure of their efforts to beat the Triumph that, and I suppose the poor guys had gone broke too. They offered this machine to the highest bidders, and there were none. But they did recall a wealthy farmer in Ohio, a fellow named Harry Belleville, who specializes in stocking and selling Vincent parts. So they called Belleville long distance, and he took the machine and all the spares at a fair price, at least enough for the boys to go back to New Zealand and try again. And the bike is now in a barn out in a small country town called Marysville, Ohio. Slide 19. I don't expect that any members of the London branch or any of the branches of the Triumph Owners Motorcycle Club will end up with a pair of these ape hangers, but I merely show this slide to give you an idea of the fetish for high bars that, thank God, we seem to be growing away from. I don't know whether it's a sign of maturity or not. The happy Triumph owner here doesn't look exactly mature, but he does look happy. He has a fine-looking motorcycle from Bonneville, and needless to say, the young man isn't married. He can hardly afford it. Keep the Bonneville too. Shot was taken in Lexington, Kentucky last year. Slide number 20 coming up. This is an old photo taken in Florida of a stock 500 Triumph. Nice, neat job done by a dealer named Jack Coulan in Jacksonville. And the color combination was chrome and a kind of a pinkish purple. And a nice, fast-running machine, running on 100 miles an hour. Slide number 21, or 21. I don't like this customized job, although it was used as a street bike by a dealer's son in Akron, Ohio. And he'd gone to all the trouble of chroming this frame when I mentioned to him that this particular frame had been condemned by the factory and he could get a free replacement, one of the later type with a stiffener bar across. However, we wouldn't chrome the replacement, so he kept the old one the way it is. The tank is from JBK, or the 100cc or 98cc Zundap 2-stroke. This was a good fast-running machine, although it does have a kind of a weak look about it. Here's a close-up of the dealer's son's efforts. The blue paint, crowded carburetors, and the special rocker box caps. And of course, we know today we've finally got a decent rocker box cap. Although I will say dealers were foolish to condemn the old zinc jobs. It was a second income to most of them. I always had a feeling that Triumph rocker box caps or the replacement profit in them put one of my kids through college. Here we come to slide number 23. This is a Detroit chop. The custom in the big cities is not to ride them anymore, but to customize them. Not exactly true, but the boys sure spend a lot of time through the winter months taking stock Triumphs and fabricating all the special junk for them, like the little tanks. And you notice the blend of the wells around the head castings. No rough spots. All those places are filled in. All rough spots, sharp indentations are filled with well, and then carefully burnished and polished and hand finished, and boys have a lot of fun with it. And the frame is chromed, special deluxe paint jobs, and a little useless saddle. Everything's done to attract attention. I can't say too much in favor of the decal of the skull and bones on the oil tank. I think most of the customized boys are the world's greatest show-offs. Here in slide number 24 is a close-up of that same bike from Detroit. There's a fellow in Detroit. He's known as, what is his name? Smiling Bill or Wild Bill. That's his name, just Wild Bill. who makes a full-time living doing this type of customizing, and some of the total cost of such a job as this will go well over the $200, $300 mark. That includes the chrome and the paint, of course. The boys love it. Slide 25. And here we come back to normal. Back to my own love, enduro or mud running. And to the casual observer, the non-enduro type, doesn't look like much has been done to this 1962 T100 SC, our so-called Triumph 500 trophy model. But look carefully and you will see that the short-legged owner made a change in the frame so his saddle could get, or his feet rather, could be closer to the ground. And here is one of those Bates saddles, a dual saddle made in California. Very neat, narrow, fine-looking seat for brief runs. Certainly not the thing for long hauls. And the kind of boys who ride these things in the 500-mile Jack Pine Enduro where this machine went and finished are not too concerned with comfort, but more with light and weight. And notice the aluminum skid plate and the crossover pipes that were necessary in 1962. And thanks to pressure from nuts like ourselves, the factory has finally condescended to make this type pipe standard for the 1963 models for this market. This machine is owned by a rather wealthy by motorcycle standards, that is, a wealthy enthusiast in Louisville, Kentucky. Uh-oh, here we go. You will note, if you look carefully, under the girl is a small Tina scooter, the first one we got in this country. The photograph was taken at Daytona Beach, near the motel swimming pool. Everybody wants a look, especially the seagulls. Slide 27, back to enduro riding. I just put the girl in to wake up you single men in the crowd. The heavy-set gentleman, number 458, is none other than Lou Atkinson, a camera repairman, and you might say a machinist par excellence from Columbus, Ohio, who not only won the world-famous enduro, the Jack Pine, the world's largest motorcycle race or event at this time, 430 entries last year. But Lou, despite his bulk and his age, he was number one man out of 430 starters on this 1962 Triumph Trophy model. And Lou's a fussy guy. I asked him why he chromed. He said, well, I'm an old Harley rider, Jack, and we love chrome. But if you look carefully on the handlebars of this machine, there's I'm gonna sneeze now. Hold on a minute. Okay. Up on the handlebars of the machine is a square box, and that's Atkinson's famous thinking brain. Being a tool maker and a model maker by profession, Lou is quite capable of making a timer, that is a rally clock, a time clock. That all he has to do is keep his two clocks aligned at a certain speed, and he knows he's running at 24 miles an hour. It's quite a gadget. Lou's been offered $300 or $400 for it and just smiles. He doesn't need the money. He just doesn't have time to make another one. Lou not only won last year's Jack Pine, he placed second this year. It was an even up tie with a young man who doesn't appear in his photograph on a tiger cub. Now the next couple over, sitting on another trophy model, which happens to be my commercial sample for last year, is Leroy Winters, our dealer in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and his wife. Leroy borrowed a stock bike, rode the Jack Pine, and won the so-called buddy class with a very high score, up in the 900s, 930, I believe. And he was so impressed that, although he had been selling other brands, he took on the Triumph dealership, probably because of the fine performance of this 500. Leroy is better known as a cub rider, though he had never sold Triumphs until this year. The third fellow over is the son of our dealer in Columbus, Ohio, fine young engineering student, who is the champion enduro rider for the state of Ohio, and his name is Don Seeley. And the farthest gentleman away on the older-looking cub is Clifford Guild, spelled G-Y-L-D, our head mechanic and shop foreman at Triumph Baltimore, and the man who built Don Burnett's Daytona winner last year. Cliff is an outstanding lightweight road racer and is also a marvelous enduro rider. This is his annual vacation given by the company to ride the jack pine every year, and he's won his class several times, and he hopes, like everyone else that enters, to win the cowbell. And we have a close-up of Lou's on slide number 28, Lou's trophy model, showing you some of the neat ideas incorporated in this machine. The beautifully formed exhaust pipes were made by Cliff Guile for Lou. Cliff is also an excellent welder. You'll notice the chrome frame. Some of the tricks that all enduro riders love to incorporate on their motorcycles is very apparent here. The big air cleaner, and what looks like a torn saddle is actually a zipper, or a hidden zipper, where Lou puts his tools in case he breaks down or needs a quick repair on a trail. He can just unzip it and reach for his tools rather than untape them. As you know, most of the guys in the 6-day trials or Jack Pines or any of these big enduro runs, they tape their parts all over the bikes. Notice the chrome shock covers, all the other gadgets that make this an outstandingly beautiful motorcycle. Slide number 29, just a quick look at a 40-inch Triumph built by a dealer in Fayetteville, North Carolina, Red Neighbors. He fabricates his frames to his own silly specifications and tilts the motor at an angle to make him look like a big cub, I guess. And the rear fender is the unusual thing. It is actually the oil tank. Big, hollow, special fender made for carrying the oil. And it's dusty country down there, and they boys fit a regular automobile dry paper type air cleaner. This machine will really run. It's done very well in some of the scrambles down through the southern states. This was on exhibition at one of our shows at Daytona Beach some years ago. Here we go to slide number 30. Number 30, this is the famous Mark II Cannibal. I didn't take this photograph, that's why it's a bit fuzzy. But this is a Detroit effort on the part of our dealer there, Jim Bruflot, and his mechanic, Bob Lapine. And this machine has won many, many trophies. 2 Triumphs in line. And here's a close-up of the engine departments. As you see, the boys have spared no efforts in making it a beautiful looking thing, as well as a machine that runs very quickly. Later, after the success of this bike, Bob took the 2 Triumph engines and mounted them transversely across the frame, Italian style. Did very well with that. And the latest effort, we understand, is to fit 4 Triumph 40-inch motors into this frame and cover it with a shell, which they've bought from Martin, the man who was responsible for those fancy front and rear shocks back early. I showed you fellows a 1951 trophy. A fellow named Martin from California has sold them a streamlined shell used on one of his record-breaking Cubs, and they hope with these 4 motors to break the currently Triumph-held record of 230 miles an hour held by Bill Johnson. Well, we wish them well. All I hope is they don't get hurt. Slide number 32. Oh, here we go. Give you fellows an idea of how crazy all drag artists are. Here is an unusual drag job. It's a Fairchild, an old antique type aircraft engine, no longer manufactured. It was an inverted V12, and this young man has fitted it to a special drag job. He's even using stock automobile tires rather than the conventional slicks. I believe I took this photo on its debut, and he hadn't quite gotten around to all the necessary extras like slick tires and special light rear wheels and so forth. But the unusual thing is his attempt to stabilize the vehicle by leaving a prop shaft still running. The drive is to the wheels, of course, but the prop shaft also spun, and I suppose the intention was to keep it on a straight line. The amusing thing about it all, of course, is his $10 helmet and his $5,000 creation. Oh, a lovely girl. This is just a photogenic young Polish girl, snapped in front of a shop in Detroit, Michigan. She's holding two balsa figurines of what the motorcycle riders used to wear in style of uniforms in this country, but styles have changed. The black jackets are no longer out. The American teddy bears wear, or teddy boys rather, and we're all going around now in slacks and sports jackets. There we are, 3 happy Triumph owners. And their symbol, number 13. This was taken some years ago. Chesty number 1 on the right, the bareheaded gentleman, quite a successful scrambler, Indiana champ for a while. It's just club stuff, understand. This isn't professional racing. That was his bike, a TR6, and a chap with a cap. Oh, the man, the Chesty is a brand of potato chips. Potato chips, and the fat guy without the hat, he's a distributor for them. Also, he's an outstanding rider. And the boy with the cap, he's a bartender. Naturally, he buys his Chesty potato chips from his friend. And the guy in the middle, he's a bar flyer. I guess you'd call him an alcoholic in England. He's also a Triumph booster, as all bar flyers are. Slide 35. Oh, there we are. Just wanted to prove to you that some of the English riders are switching to BMWs, as this gentleman in the Stibe sidecar seems overcome with shame to be caught in a German bike. And the bearded chap doesn't ride a Triumph, thank God, but he's a handsome-looking devil. And here we go, last but not least, take you back to the old days when, remember, this is the Triumph model with the little tanks. You'll notice how small those tanks are. This is an old 1952 Terrier. This is the thing that, was it 52 or 54? I've forgotten. God knows, we had enough trouble with them. But we had a lot of fun with them too. And nice thing about Triumphs, Terriers, twins, and everything else, regardless of age, they can always be brought back to their pristine condition. Can't say the same for the young girl. She's married now and has 3 kids. Well, that's the end of our slideshow.
Thank you, Jack. There he is, sitting on the right of the photograph. This program has been brought to you through the courtesy of the Triumph Owners Tape Recording Subcommittee.